Thank you, everybody, for joining the town hall. We will begin in about 30 minutes at 1 o'clock Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for joining the Storj Labs Town Hall for Q2 2018. We are about to begin in about 5 minutes, so stay tuned. Thank you, everybody. The Q2 2018 Storj Labs Town Hall. We're really excited to be sharing some updates with all of you. Before we begin, we have a forward-looking statement that we wanted to share. This document contains forward-looking statements about our product direction, the development, release, and timing of any features or functionality described for our products remains at the sole discretion of Storj Labs. The information herein is not a commitment to deliver any material, code, or functionality and should not be relied upon in making purchase decisions. This is the agenda for today. We'll start off hearing from Ben Golub, our interim CEO and executive chairman. After that, we'll hear from John Gleason, our VP of operations, who will be talking about farmer payouts. After that, we'll hear from JT Olio, our director of engineering, who will give a progress update on V3. After which we'll hear from John Sanderson, our VP of marketing, who will talk about sign up for V3 and how you can stay up to date on the latest. And after that, we'll hear from all of these gentlemen in a Q&A where we'll be answering questions from you and other community members. We'll turn it over to Ben.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us for the town hall. I'm super excited to be here. I have just hit my 3-month anniversary at Storj. So this is actually my first town hall. And I realize that a number of the people on the phone have been working on and with Storj for a lot longer than I have. So I want to thank you for all of your efforts to date. Just a little bit about me. I have had the privilege of working for 7 startups, 4 of which I've been the CEO. And so I was attracted to Storj for a number of reasons, because frankly, there's nothing as exciting as a great team and a community that's addressing a huge and unmet problem with a unique and disruptive solution. And for those of you who haven't heard this, the world is going to create something like 44 zettabytes of data this year, which would fill up a stack of CD-ROMs to the orbit of Mars and back. And somewhere in that data is the information that's going to cure cancer, that will find new sources of energy, help new businesses, and probably some awesome cat videos as well. And we have the opportunity to make the storage of that data dramatically more secure, more performant, more reliable, more private, and more economical than any of the current centralized clouds can provide. And we can do it in a way that provides meaningful economic value for farmers, for open source projects, and the broader community. And I can't think of a better team and, more importantly, a better community to help us build that. So my priorities are pretty straightforward. We have a huge opportunity, and we want to build a robust platform, company, and community that can address the huge opportunity in front of us. And in order to do that, as you heard at the last town hall, we really need to rebuild the network. We need to build a network that delivers the scale and the durability and the performance and functionality and economics that will make sense for a broad variety of high-value use cases. That's not only a priority for our customers, but that's the best way that we can generate meaningful amounts of demand and meaningful economics for our farmers. We know we can't get there with the current network, and so most of my efforts and most of the company's efforts have been dedicated towards building the next version of Storj, and there's been very exciting progress. And when JT Olio gets on the mic here in a second, you'll hear a lot about the progress and where we're going. But before we talk about the future, I do want to acknowledge that there have been some significant problems over the last few months. Seems like they date from the date that I joined, so I apologize. But we know that there's a lot that needs to happen to make payments more transparent, more efficient. I'm not happy with how long it's been taking. The company is not satisfied. And while there's been a lot of progress that we'll also talk about, I just wanted to make sure that you understand that we apologize and we're committed to fixing any remaining issues from March and April and making sure that May happens accurately and according to schedule. So again, thank you for your patience and for your support. I'm excited about where we're going, and I'd like to, with that, turn it over to John Gleason to talk about payments.
Hi, so John Gleason, Vice President of Operations. So I just want to start first with talking a little bit about what our target and our goal is for making consistent monthly farmer payments. And so every month when we look at our farmer payments, we try to get the data published as quickly as possible, and certainly within the first week of the month. And we want to give our community an opportunity to review and submit requests for changes to that payout sheet. But once those payout requests are in, we want to start the payout, and we want to get it done within 2 weeks. And so in any given month, in that second to third week, we complete all of the payouts. And then at the end of the month, when it's cut off, we start the process over again. Now, in March and April and May, we've run into some significant challenges when it comes to the payouts. In March, the script did complete, but unfortunately, when that script completed, there was a substantial number of payouts that failed for March. And we had the opportunity to look at that and say, well, we can either address those immediately and have a delay in making any more payments, or we can queue up April, which was ready to go, and start making those payments more quickly. And so we started the April payout process, and we expect April to pay out to be completed sometime around the end of this week on June 8th. And as soon as that's completed, then we'll rerun the March script. It'll be ready to go. And we'll expect that it will perform now the same way that the April payout has performed. And so in the last couple of days of running the April payout, we haven't seen any of the issues that we saw with the March payout that caused that. For the May payout, as soon as those March last remaining payouts are done, we'll get those completed. So we published the May payout today, and then we expect that that process will take from June 9th to June 21st, and we should have that wrapped up. From there on, we should be back on the regularly planned schedule for all the payouts moving forward. So I do want to talk a little bit about some of those challenges that we've run into with the payout. And so when you look at the sheer number of payouts that we're doing, 150,000 payouts, where we land here is that we're equal to approximately 7.5% at peak on the Ethereum of total transactions, right? And so we have hit number one on the transaction source. And along with that, we've also had to deal with high variability in the Ethereum gas prices, as well as a number of other things. So overall, individual transactions, right, they're complex, no matter what you do. But when you start getting hundreds of thousands of those transactions, the complexity scales exponentially. And at this scale, we hit challenges from everything from variable token prices to variable gas prices to Ethereum parity problems. But overall, our commitment is when we're at the scale, we should be operating with highest speed possible with the least number of transaction failures. And so that is our commitment. And that has been our focus on the development team to get there as quickly as possible. Now, when you hear from JT about the V3 network, in addition to having high performing storage capabilities, we also anticipate a much better payout process. And so what we want to shift to is from a centralized payment process where we're doing all the payments to a process where the farmers can come and get their payments whenever they want to. And so we're looking to deploy a smart contract that allows farmers to do that concurrently with the V3 network launch. Now, while we're on the topic of payments and tokens, one last thing I do want to cover is the token exchange for our old SJCX counterparty token for our new ERC20 compatible Storj token. So we've been trying to get all of those tokens exchanged over the course of the last year. What we did find out was that Poloniex, one of the wallet holders for a substantial number of SJCX tokens that are still outstanding, has decided to deprecate support for their SJCX wallet. So what that means for our token holders is they need to get their tokens out of that wallet by June 30th. That's the end of the month. Now, Poloniex hasn't communicated yet what they plan to do once those wallets are closed. However, our converter will remain open, our converter application. And so please visit storj.io and get your tokens converted as quickly as possible. And with that, let me turn it over to JT, who's going to tell us a little bit about the V3 network.
Hi, so I'm JT, I'd like to start off, I guess, with a really good quote from a really prominent senior engineer at Google, Jeff Dean. Essentially, the right design at a certain level is not necessarily the right design at a new order of magnitude of scale. And so recently we hit 100 petabytes of storage capacity on our network, and it's an enormous achievement, but it also means it might be time to sort of take a step back and look at some of the stuff at the foundational level of sort of how things look on the drawing board. And so we're going back to the drawing board with V3. We've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't, and we're going to take that experience and take that information and improve upon it. So there are some problems with the V2, the current V2 network that we're going to address with the V3 network. So just to talk briefly about some of those, one of the things with the V2 network is we don't have as much information as we would like about what's happening with the V2 network. And so with V3, we're baking a lot of instrumentation into every level of the V3 code base in the V3 network. Another aspect of any sort of successful storage system is storage durability. And really the big gorilla in the market is Amazon S3, and they have 11 nines of durability. And so to get that kind of durability is a pretty big undertaking, and it's not something that we've achieved yet with the V2 network. And so there's a number of things we're going back and fixing with V3. One of the things we're doing is we're using erasure codes. We're doubling down and using erasure codes only and no mirroring or replication. This will allow us to control durability in a way that doesn't affect bandwidth usage. And one of the things that we've learned at our level of scale that is going to really impact us as we continue to grow, unless we do something about it, is bandwidth usage. A lot of customers with residential internet have highly asymmetric bandwidth, or they simply have they have bandwidth caps, which are essentially, if you have a terabyte bandwidth cap, using that much bandwidth over a month only is about 300 kilobytes that you get to use all month long before you blow through your bandwidth cap. So being really conscientious about bandwidth is one of the reasons why we're using erasure codes for V3. One of the things we're doing is we're going to support S3 drop-in compatibility. V3 will support the S3 protocol. This will be really convenient for farmers as far as how easy it is for us to acquire customers. There will be a lot more demand for storage. So we're supporting a lot of features that S3 supports: streaming, folders, indefinite storage. We didn't really hit as much of the decentralized direction as we would have liked with V2. And so V3 was going to continue down a decentralized path and be even more decentralized with heavy clients. Cheating is something that has been discussed a bunch in the last few months about the V2 network. And really, we should be offering job offers to people who find holes in our network and not trying to penalize them. And so going back and sort of reevaluating what is caused what has caused the holes in our network and how to sort of plug those and incentivize farmers to do the right thing is what we're focusing on. So a few other issues, like we're making sure that our code base right now is 300,000 lines of JavaScript, 350,000 lines of JavaScript. At a code base scale of that size, we need to sort of step back and try and figure out some new techniques, new modularity, new components to organize the code base in a way that will support onboarding new engineers, onboarding a larger team, and getting more developers to help us. So that's sort of where we're going with V3. At a high level, what V3 is going to be is there's going to be an S3 compatible gateway that customers download and run locally. It's going to talk with the heavy client for metadata, and it's going to store data on the farmers. So it's going to take data, break it up using Reed-Solomon erasure coding, store it on farmers, and then keep track of that metadata in their account, that customer's account on a heavy client that they may run. So I talked about components, breaking the system into components and modules. This is sort of an idea of just kind of where we are with some of these components. You'll be hearing a lot more about what these components are and the details about how they're built and how they're implemented once we get to the white paper, which is sort of our next major public deliverable, is publishing the details of how this stuff works. But suffice it to say, we're on track, things are going well, and we are building out something that I'm really excited and proud to be a part of. So so the V3 white paper is coming. We're in the middle of updating it, and you can follow along with the GitHub repo. The Storj project inside the Storj organization is the project where current V3 development is happening. So take a look at that to get an update. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Sanderson, our VP of Marketing.
Thank you, JT, and thanks for everyone for participating in our community and supporting Storj. We have major milestones and have a rough timeline of our major milestones and updates that we plan on accomplishing. Obviously on this, the big one to pay attention to, as JT mentioned, is going to be our updated white paper. Once we have that one, we intend on actually describing the network V3 in more detail and releasing, again, monthly updates on our progress on these milestones, as well as just as a company as a whole. There's much anticipation for this new network, and we've had a lot of questions about the best ways to be notified for V3 for both farmers and bridge users. In addition to our commitments to updating ourselves on our blog, please follow us on social media, where we'll be linking to everything from our updates to our blog to announcing when new sign-up channels will be available. Please look at our homepage right now at the very bottom. We have a newsletter sign-up page as well as links to our social media. These are the best places for general updates. For those looking to maybe join and support our bridge for new users, please use the link on the homepage that says Get Early Access. For those of you who are farmers but no developers, we all know that the success of Network V3 will be dependent upon our ability to attract developers to our network, so please refer them over there. Again, thanks for your support, and back to Dan for our Q&A section.
Great. Thank you, everybody. So for the Q&A section, we've divided it into more developer questions related to V3 and other product updates, and then into farmer questions as well. But I think the first question that's on everybody's mind is for JT, and it is, when will V3 go live?
Okay, great. That's a great question. So to be totally clear, we don't actually have a specific launch date, but we are very optimistic about our progress, and we're real excited about just sort of the development effort so far, and we're going as fast as possible. So ultimately, what we really want to do is, this is a storage product, and what's more important than shipping something fast is shipping something good and high quality. So our primary focus right now is shipping a high quality storage product that stores data in a way that isn't going to that is going to earn much more trust than a lot of other products in the market currently have. So in terms of timeline, we're hoping to have more guidance in the next town hall in the next 3 months, just as far as how things are going. But we're going to start updating monthly with the V3 development progress. So there's going to be an upcoming version of the white paper, obviously, that we're going to put together a video that covers more of the technical details about V3. And we're going to continue to do much better than we have at communicating with the community about how things are going and when to expect more. So unfortunately, there isn't really a great answer to the question of when the launch date, when it's happening. We're hopeful that it'll happen this year, maybe sooner than later, but Q4. But really, the answer is it will ship when it's good and ready.
Great. The next question was also about V3. Will the existing data and buckets get migrated, or will there be a cut between the old and the new network?
Great. So we're working on a migration plan to make sure that we don't lose any data. But that said, we're committed to making sure that that the process from moving to V2 to V3 is as easy as possible. We are making sure that V3 will be backwards compatible with existing V2 using programs and backwards compatible with people who use S3. But as far as the data goes, we are expecting that we'll be doing a migration that may be manual. And if you are interested in that process, please reach out to us and let us know.
Great. The next question, JT, is can you already say if there will be big changes within the libstorj API? So if I did wrapper on top of it, will that still work or will it need adjustments?
Great. So yeah, there are definitely big changes within the libstorj API code base, but the storage.h header file and any programs that link against the storage.h interface, the API itself, our expectation is that we're going to be backwards compatible as much as possible. If there is a way to move Earth and code to get it so that it's backwards compatible, we will do it. Ultimately, there are going to be some new API endpoints that will be more efficient and maybe more useful. And so people will have a lot of incentive to upgrade their wrappers and upgrade their code to use the new V3 code. But we do expect that the V2 code will continue to work with the V3 network.
Great. And just to remind everybody, if you have questions, you can submit them to townhall@storj.io. and we'll answer them as we go through. Again, that's townhall, all one word, @storj.io. The next question is also about V3. JT, how is the new V3 network plan to work exactly? And what are some of the things you hope to achieve with this redesign of the network architecture?
So yeah, so we talked a little bit about this during the presentation, but like I said a little bit just a second ago, we do have a more detailed video coming out soon. And so the goals that we're mainly working to achieve are improving our reliability, our scalability, and our performance. Those are our main goals. And ultimately, of course, on top of all those goals is earning your trust as far as a storage product. Focusing on those are our top priority, but like I said, we'll have another video with really diving into the engineering details about what this product will look like coming out soon.
Great. The next two questions are kind of similar but different, so I'll ask them at the same time, and they're probably fitted for JT and Philip, our CTO. As a farmer, will it still be better to have 4 nodes with 2 terabytes each? Or 1 node with 8 terabytes, will that increase my chances of getting a shard? So essentially asking how that formula will work. And then the other similar question is for farmers who have a lot of hardware at their disposal to contribute to the network, will it still make sense with V3 to continue running lots of nodes?
One of the things that we want to make sure that we focus on with V3 is that we're paying people for what matters, and it doesn't matter. We don't incentivize people to focus on things that don't matter. If it makes the most sense for you and it's the most cost efficient to run 2 nodes instead of 1, or run 1 node instead of 2, what we care about is that you store data reliably. As a farmer, what we want farmers to do is be able to be trusted with data, store it, and have great uptime. And if the best way to do that is 2 nodes, great. If the best way to do that is 1 node, great. So V3 shouldn't care about that. V3 is only going to care about reliable storage of data.
Great. And then JT, with V3 not continuing development of the SIP9 bridge, what role will the bridge take with V3 versus what the bridge is currently doing now?
Sure. So I guess this kind of goes back to my comment about the heavy client previously in the presentation. But ultimately, the current bridge is in the V2 code base, and the V3 code base is entirely new. So for better or worse, the V3 network is written in a different programming language. It's written in Go instead of JavaScript. And so the continuing development of the V2 code base just didn't make a lot of sense to continue to do. And so V3 is going to, the V2 bridge is going to have no role with V3, if that makes sense. We will continue as far as an API. If you're building stuff against the APIs that we're committed to supporting are the libstorj header file API, and we're not necessarily committing to support the bridge API, but we may add endpoints as requested.
Great. The next one comes from a developer building a platform on top of Storj. This one would be, I think, best suited for John Gleason, our VP of Operations. John, regarding white label products, what is planned on this side? Will I be able to create accounts for my customers and pay and manage those accounts for them?
Yeah, this will definitely be possible on V3. So we've taken a lot of the feedback from developers that we received on the V2 network in terms of how people want to develop and what they wanted to be able to do. And this is an area where we've increased the amount of flexibility. So libstorj will still, even though it currently lets you create create end user accounts, it doesn't aggregate them from a billing perspective easily, and you can't accomplish the result of sort of that white labeled user approach, but it's unwieldy. So what V3 does is it makes this a lot easier in terms of still allowing you to create users explicitly creating their own storage account and bake that into your app, but also obscure that through white labeling so that user creation is automatic for individual storage where it's appropriate. But in addition, since we're also adding the S3 support, it really makes it that much easier to do sort of the industry standard approach for data layers, right? And so you can easily port an application that uses S3 compatible data stores today to Storj with little or no effort. And that's where I think we're going to see the bulk of our developers using those types of interfaces. So one of the other interesting things is that, as JT was mentioning about the heavy client, that also is something where developers can run their own heavy client. And so not only can you white label Storj as a storage label within your application, but you can also create a developer experience that's white labeled as well.
Okay, next question, JT. When will you release a real-time storage network explorer, specifically one better than the tools currently out there that were built by the community, like the tool at map.storj.space, for example?
That's a great question. I mentioned one of the very first things I mentioned about V3 is making sure that it's got instrumentation built in at every level. And so what really, I mean, if I can sort of assume a little bit about what this question is asking is, what is the information? Do we have a rich display of information about what's happening with the network? And the answer is that we need much better displays of information for V3. We really don't want to be flying blind. And so from a V3 perspective, we want to make sure that V3 will be reporting back data like this. Of course, we're currently focused on building the storage platform itself. And to the extent that we export our data to the public, we have to figure out sort of just from a prioritization perspective where that falls. And so we are committed to sharing a lot of information about that, but ultimately I don't really have a very detailed answer, specifically because a lot of that answer depends on our development over the next few months. So we do have a lot of stats that we update pretty regularly, and we're going to continue to update those stats as we move forward. Here's Sean has more to say.
So Sean here, I just wanted to add a little bit to that, is that in the V3 system, I think we'll have exponentially more data on to make, good choices and really understand what's going on in the network. So I think we're all really excited to have that. I think it would be useful for the community members to tell us, because we've had this question quite a few times on terms of what data we're providing and data that people would like. If you would tell us in the community chat or the support emails what specific information is really interesting to you, I think that will help us, at least in the future, as we understand and build out these tools, to know what information is important to the community, because we know some ideas on what information is important to us. So any feedback that can be gleaned from the community and what's important, it's useful to us for us to know that now as we go into building these platforms. So that's the only thing that I'd want to add there. I also want to say perhaps there might be, and this is a question for you, JT, might be a little bit of drop off in the information as we transition from V2 to V3. So people should be aware and expect that as we're transitioning platforms, there might be perhaps a little lull in the information that's being provided, but we'll definitely try to do our best to keep that information and up to date.
Great. Okay, the next question is, anyone still working on the old network, or has all work shifted to building the new network?
This is perfectly apropos for what Sean was talking about. Essentially, what we are working on right now is entirely the V3 network. All development efforts internally within Storj have shifted entirely to V3, and there is no expectation, unless in some sort of emergency, to do any more development on V2. So that's the answer to that.
Okay, great. Next question, JT, is what is currently the highest upload and download speed that has been witnessed in kilobytes per second when testing the live Storj network?
Sure. So this predates me a little bit, but for the V2 network, we currently we have achieved 1 gigabit a second. For V3, we're not quite to the point yet where we have something that we can really share as a measurable stat there.
Great. Next question is for John Gleason. John, why isn't the fact that shards expire after 90 days clearly disclosed to customers?
So this is one area where we're updating our terms and conditions to reflect the 90-day contract renewals. When we rolled out the network, we thought the 90-day contracts on the network would be a good approach. And many decentralized applications that are sort of doing the storage processes have those limitations. There are 30-day contracts that don't renew. There are 15-day contracts that renew as long as you're connected in your node every 15 days to manage that data. And there are 90-day contracts. And when we launched without the feature of renewing contracts, we thought we had a solution around the corner, and we kept running into challenges. And those challenges were made worse by the scale and speed at which the network grew and the increasing number of contracts and complexity of those contracts. Now, we do make backups for all active data for those who haven't renewed or auto-updated. And so if any user has run into issues with accessing data, you should please let us know, and we'll help you with that. But this was a huge lesson learned, both the scale we ran into and among the issues that we hit. But going forward in V3, we won't have this issue. We've architected that limitation out of the system and really come up with a much more sophisticated way to handle that. It's one of those things. It was an opportunity for us. We learned from it, and going forward, we won't have that issue anymore.
Great. Next question actually just came in on Twitter, I believe. But will you also support Microsoft Azure or just S3?
Sure. So the main thing that we're using right now is a library from our friends at Minio. And Minio is a fantastic library that supports allowing you to plug an arbitrary backend into something that makes it compatible with the S3 protocol. So it's not that we're supporting Amazon S3. We're able to replace Amazon S3 for applications that depend on it. So it's not so much that we support S3 or we support Azure or we support Google Storage. In fact, in using Minio, you can talk to Azure or Google Storage or S3 or any of these other products through the Minio interface. So it's really not so much whether or not we support Amazon or Microsoft or Google. It's a matter of, do we support applications that support one of those things? And Amazon is a very prominent product, and so supporting the Amazon protocol is a really good default, and is going to allow us to be plug and play and drop in for a lot of different scenarios.
Great. The next question is about farmer payouts. Philip, can you explain in detail what happened with the farmer payouts in March and April? What was the problem, and why didn't we just revert to the payout approach that was used before, when payments were much more smooth?
Sure. So a lot of it boils down to the fact that the number of payments as a whole has been increasing quite a bit. The payments may have looked a lot more smooth in the past, but there was a lot of hands-on manual work behind the scenes being done, which takes up a whole lot of time. Some of the issues that we hit were the large fluctuation of gas prices and issues and bugs in parity in Web3. We made the decision that it was going to be better to stop and make payouts better than let it keep getting worse and worse. We've heard the question, why not a smart contract? So we did that before. It was double the cost and still took as much time. We're still looking into options with smart contracts. However, payouts now should be much faster with the changes we made. We put a lot of time into the application that sends out those payments. We have the ability to send out payments from multiple Ethereum nodes at one time. We actually, just as John said earlier, we hit the #1 for transaction volume at over 7.5% on the Ethereum network.
I just wanted to add to that is that we have learned a lot about sending out massive amounts at payment and scale. And so we've definitely created, over the past near term, a lot of tools and processes to make that a lot better and easier. So I think definitely there was a hard part there, but we definitely learned a lot to make that process a lot better. Thanks to the team has been very hard at work to do that. So
yeah, we definitely have them. And this isn't something that you can go easily Google or find an application to do this for you. So
how to send 10% of all Ethereum transactions. It's not something that's available. You just gotta learn it as you go.
Great. We touched a little bit on this, Philip, during the actual town hall, but I think it would be good to go over again since it's been such a hot question. But any ideas on how to keep the March, April payment issues from happening again, and kind of following up, like when will these payments be complete? And this particular user has a zero storage payment issue as well.
Yeah, so that's exactly why we stopped to do the work on the payment system that we did. The work that was put in there's a lot of fail safes in place now to keep the mistakes from happening or issues from going out, just like the zero payments. So that being said, we know that there were some issues with March payments, and it is top of our priority list to go back and fix all of them. So we will not move forward without fixing every single one of those.
Okay. Great. Philip, can you talk a little bit in depth about what led to those zero storage payments? This user had a question about that. What made that issue happen?
Sure. It was a pretty simple thing. It was just a missed change in the data format that we use in the application that sends out payments. Payments go out very, very quickly. So if you don't catch it immediately, it can turn into a bigger problem, which it did. And again, what we mentioned earlier, we've added a bunch of safeguards to keep it from happening again in the future.
Okay, great. And Philip, when will the payment process be automated, or when will the first step towards automation be taken?
So the first thing you got to do before automating anything is really, really fully understand all of the steps that you have to take to do that process, especially when you're working with money. So we learned a lot through the process of writing this application. We do want to continue to look into solutions with smart contracts. We've considered ideas such as creating a smart contract that allows users to pull their payments when they want to. It could be something that instead of doing a monthly payout, it just consistently throughout the day or however deposits farmers payouts into the contract after we go over a certain value. And it kind of moves the ability to the farmer to be able to collect their payment whenever they like.
Okay, great. We actually just had another question come in related to V3. JT, since V3 is written in Go, which is compiled as far as I know, will the farmer client be more easy on RAM than the old JavaScript node client?
It's a little too early to talk about memory usage, but we do anticipate having a pretty low footprint. So again, it's hard to answer that until we're farther along. But so far, the memory usage that we're using is pretty low. We don't have to run the V8 JavaScript interpreter that Node requires, and a number of other issues. So it should be lower, but hopefully check back soon, and we'll have a better answer.
Great. Next question is for John Gleason. This one came in off of Reddit. And John, this user, it's a long question, so I'll just kind of summarize it. But essentially, yesterday, there were people in Rocket Chat that acquired about March payments, and there was some miscommunication between Storj and the community moderators and the farmers. And so this user is essentially just talking about a banner that had gone up that talked about the April and March payouts. And then that banner was updated later on to reflect the accurate information. And so in summary, this user asks, I think everyone understands that technical issues happen and that Storj has the full intention of paying everyone. I'm not concerned with those issues as much as I am about ongoing poor communication.
Yeah, so we are a small team and we move very quickly. And I would like just to take this opportunity to point out that our community leaders are amazing, right? They are dedicated. They work tirelessly to help our community to make sure everybody has the information that they need. But frankly, sometimes we make mistakes, and we're doing our best to learn from those mistakes so that they don't happen again. And so I understand how frustrating it is, and I am frustrated too. But we commit to improving our communication with our community managers so this type of thing doesn't happen in the future. Today we do daily office hours and we do a series of regular meetings with our community managers, but we can do better, and we don't want to see this kind of lack of clarity in the future. And so I'm committed to making this better. One of the other things that we've done to sort of increase the speed of getting that information out is we've changed how we do the publishing of the payout sheet. So instead of throwing out just a Google sheet, one of our community leaders, Stefan Benton, put together a web app that makes it really easy to look up farmer payouts. And so in addition to that, we've also got a really nice streamlined support form for anyone who thinks the results of the payout sheet might not be accurate. So through that form, you can collect all the information you need and then submit that, and then we'll have all the information that we need to assess that and then get that fixed. So we will be publishing more information on that site after the town hall this afternoon.
Great. Thank you, John. And just a reminder that anyone can send questions to townhall, one word, at storj.io. Again, that's townhall@storj.io. So send in your questions. We'll get them answered. Next question is for Ben. The 245 million tokens that are currently locked up, what is the plan? Lockup will be, so essentially like they're asking what is the plan for the 245 million tokens that were relocked into a smart contract in December?
Great question. So as you know, the tokens, 245 million, are locked up until July 29th of this year. We sold a certain amount of tokens in the token sale. We have another bucket that is available for additional farmer payouts, et cetera. We believe that we have enough right now between what we have that's not locked up and what's in circulation that we don't need to take those tokens that are currently locked up out of lockup. So we will be renewing the lockup. The main thing that we owe the community, though, is a detailed token distribution plan. And that will happen post V3 launch. Once V3 launches, we expect to see a lot more demand on the network, a lot more high quality demand on the network. Consequently, hopefully a lot more need for liquidity and paying out Storj tokens to users. Once we have a better sense of what those metrics are going to be, we'll provide more detail. But I have every expectation that we will relock those 245 up for about the same amount of time as we did the last time.
So that would be early 2019, right? Okay, great. We had a question come in from email. Will Storj provide more details on how the Storj coin will be used in the new ecosystem? JT, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, the V2 paper actually has a pretty interesting part already that talks about how we pay farmers. And there's nothing really inherent about V2 actually that says we have a cryptocurrency component. In fact, the V2 paper mentions goats as a potential payment mechanism. That's in the V2 paper. You should check it out. The V3 paper will be similar in the sense that cryptocurrency, and in particular our storage token, is the marketplace that we're creating for this storage product. We want people to be exchanging storage in exchange for value in terms of storage tokens. But there's nothing inherent about it being a specific cryptocurrency. We're not actually using a blockchain for specific data storage. We're not modifying a blockchain protocol for our purposes. We're primarily using the storage token for payments. And we get a number of benefits by using a standardized token for payments across the board. And so we expect that to be the storage token, but there isn't anything more deep to it than that.
And to be clear, compatibility is off the table for the initial V3 launch.
We're not working on a Goat compatible layer for V3. That's right.
Okay, great. Ben, this next question is for you. What is the optimistic grand vision for Storj in Q4 2019, 18 months from now?
That's a great question. Obviously, we are looking to launch V3, and the real reason that we're launching V3 is because we know when we do it, we will have much greater durability, much greater performance, a much richer feature set, which will support things like CDN type capabilities. What that should mean is that we are applicable to a much broader use case. It will be much easier for developers to develop against Storj. And as a result, we expect significantly more demand on the network. We have a set of internal metrics that we've put together that actually go out for the next 5 years. But I can tell you that by Q4 of 2019, we're hoping to be approaching exabyte scale. We're also hoping to have dramatically increased the ratio of egress to storage, which will be an indication that we have much higher value data that's being stored with us. And a consequence of that, at least according to our math, is that monthly farmer payments per farmer should go up by a factor of 4 or 5.
Sean, the next question is for you. What were the details of the disagreement between dev and leadership that led to the departure of a lead dev back in 2017?
So I'd first like to start by saying that Storj has gone through many evolutions. It was very different when it was just an idea, myself in a dorm room, than when it was a small, decentralized project just getting its legs, then a small, scrappy startup, and now we are a growing and well-funded business. So last summer, 4 members of the team left the project to pursue other opportunities, including 2 of our co-founders. There was disagreements on, how we would grow and scale, and kind of the long-term vision of where the project and the company would go, and how we could, quickly grow to take on the point where we can scale and really take on, the big dogs like AWS. And so, these are things that normally happen in startups and companies. And we've learned, and we've grown, and we continue to grow and scale and learn. So again, these are normal things that happen as companies grows and scales, and we've learned a lot, and we're really excited for the future. And we're really excited to take on the large companies. AWS, we're really excited to build that V3. We're really excited to get to exabyte scale, and those are the things that we're focused on.
Great. Next question just came in off of the chat on the webinar forum that we have. It's from Renee. What will the transition to V3 look like for farmers? Does it basically mean starting over with new nodes? And can you say anything about how farmers will be picked for shards, reputation, response time, etc.?
That's great. So I'm bad at getting the microphone the right distance. So essentially the migration plan for existing farmers, we haven't quite ironed that out yet. But one of the things that we want to make sure we do is give people who have been with our community an opportunity to be early farmers. So we're working on a plan for that. Aside from that, otherwise, we don't really have a clear, detailed plan about how identities persist from farmer to farmer and how reputation persists, simply because we're changing the reputation system. As you mentioned, you're asking sort of how V3 will measure reputation, and V2 reputation and V3 reputation will be different enough that there's not a ton of directly comparable things. One of the things we want to do with V3 is make sure that the reputation is incentivizing people to do the right thing in a really robust way. And so really, when you think about what you want from a farmer, you want farmers to reliably store data. They should not delete the data that they've received unless the customer tells them that it's deleted. You should not slow down traffic. You shouldn't be offline, right? So the sorts of things that you would want from a farmer are the sorts of things that we're going to make sure that we're incentivizing with reputation. And that's different from being able to increase your reputation. We just want to make sure that the reputation from a game theoretic perspective encourages people to stay online. If you're a farmer that stays online, your farmer has good uptime, it's not offline very often, it's not your laptop, you have a good internet connection, you're going to have a better reputation. If you have great bandwidth, if you have lots of bandwidth to share, that's going to help your reputation. If you have a lot of disk space and you don't delete your data and your hard drives aren't corrupted and they're not screwing up bytes, then that will be better reputation than the alternative. So just honestly, like really the best thing you can do is make sure you have good internet. Bandwidth caps are going to be a big challenge, I think, for V3. Good internet, good uptime. Make sure your computer isn't your laptop or a cell phone or something. We want it hardwired into something, and you should be fine. So we'll have more details again to share sort of going forward, but at a high level, if you can imagine someone storing data with you, or if you're storing data with someone else, the sorts of things you'd want, those are the types of things that we're going to try and incentivize.
Great. The next question is for Ben. Ben, can you lay out some of your business targets so we as users or farmers who share hard drive space can see Storj's outlook?
Absolutely. So I talked about some of them just a couple of minutes ago, but we have business targets around the total amount stored in the system. We spoke earlier about having 100 petabytes at peak on V2. We want to be at least 10 times that by the end of 2019. We want the sort of egress as a percentage of storage to roughly double. And once we have V3 in a better launched and in a better shape, we'll be sort of providing consistent metrics. We're looking to have payouts per farmer go up by hopefully something like a factor of 5. There are going to be significant improvements in things like durability and availability. Those should, we should be adding 9s to the end of our to the end of our metrics. Another thing that is really key for me in terms of metrics that I'm focused on is economic value that we're creating for a community, and that's economic value for our farmers, but also economic value for people who help us who build on top of Storj. And one of the things that really attracted me to this company is, having come from two open source companies prior to this is our opportunity to provide a meaningful way of monetizing open source projects. And that's something that is fairly difficult to do with traditional clouds. In our case, we want to take a portion of the difference between what users pay us and what we pay to farmers, and make sure that that's available to people who help generate more demand for the system, which are largely open source projects like FileZilla that we've mentioned before. So once we get a firmer handle on what the V3 metrics are in all of those areas, we'll be sharing more.
Great, thanks, Ben. We just had another question come in, I believe, off of Twitter. Can someone warn people about the scams and give them guidance on those? So this relates to scams probably on Twitter that are coming out, as well as other scams as well in the industry.
Yeah, so essentially this is a rampant problem throughout the entire crypto industry. People impersonating Twitter accounts, Slack and Rocket Chat accounts, phishing emails. It's constant every day. Our community leaders really try to do the best that they can to notify people and users of these scams, but it's really just a constant deluge of constant people trying to impersonate Storj Labs. And again, like many other crypto companies are experiencing the same thing. We've tried our best to work with the platforms to kind of stem this issues. We made some changes on Rocket Chat to kind of stem the flow of fraud there. We highly encourage anyone, if you see impersonators on Twitter, to report them. And we've done our best to ban them and remove them from Reddit. So it really is a whack-a-mole kind of problem. I don't think there is a magical solution, but we are definitely trying our hardest to limit the flow and kind of stem the bleeding of again just the massive amount of people who will try to take advantage of that. So
yeah, I think in this area it just helps to have a healthy dose of common sense too, right? I mean, just like anything else, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true, and it's not us telling you, right? So watch out for yourself, and we do the best to help watch out for you.
Yeah, and this is Dan. I run communications here at Storj, but and that part of that is running social media channels. But just to kind of put this in perspective, about every time we put out any kind of tweet on Twitter, we get between 1 to 5 replies from scammers, like trying to do these ETH giveaways. And I think that's pretty common for any token that has a Twitter channel that is a top token. So we will never be doing any kind of giveaway like that, any kind of ETH giveaway, any kind of giveaway like that. We'll probably be doing swag giveaways, so watch for those. But just be aware of that. And it's something that we've reached out to Twitter to try to get verified, to kind of help kind of us stand out from those scammers that are trying to spoof our accounts. And as soon as those spammers come up, we report them. And probably every month we have 100 people that are trying to spoof our account that we block, and are successful at getting blocked on Twitter. So just wanted to help put that in perspective in relation to Twitter specifically.
Also, I think it's super important that we educate our users as well. If we're doing something with our token or a service, there will almost never be a case where it's not listed directly on our website. So always make sure you're going to some domain at storj.io or storj.io itself.
Great. And I think that's all the questions that we had. We did have some support questions come up where people were asking specifically for support for their specific scenario. So if you do have support questions, the best place for those is on Rocket Chat. So follow us on Rocket Chat. Follow us on Twitter for the latest updates. We'll be doing, as was mentioned, we'll be doing monthly blog posts about the progress towards V3, as well as our other updates that we're working on. So follow us there on Twitter and our blog. And in closing, I will turn it over to Ben to say a few words.
Hi, so thank you all for participating in the town hall, and thanks to everybody at Storj, both at the company and in the community, for helping to build Storj to where it is right now. We've got a really exciting future ahead. Again, I want to apologize and say that we are working on all of the current issues as we are focusing on building a much more exciting future. And please keep the questions coming, and please keep us honest. We're excited to be working with you to build something very exciting for the future. And please watch out for more detail on the technical deep dive.
Thank you, everybody.